Chris Roberts. Yes, where in the world is Chris Roberts? We don't see much of him anymore in a world where Chris Roberts hardly posts on Spectrum. In fact, let's go to Christopher Roberts' profile here. I believe this is his third post he's ever made on Spectrum, and of all time. Let's just go over there. And yes, it is. This is the third post Chris Roberts has ever made on Spectrum. So it's kind of a big deal. He doesn't do it too often. And the topic is the room system. Now, I had no idea room systems were this prevalent and widely used in Star Citizen, but everything in Star Citizen is essentially a room system, ranging from a planet to the indoor cabin of your Aurora to the coil in Squadron 42, which has its volume described by a room. So room systems are everywhere. He goes on to explain that there are two states, a mutable and immutable states. A mutable room is one with finite amount of density, pressure, and gases. So the inside of your Aurora is mutable. You open the door to vacuum, all those gases rush out, and if you don't have a helmet on, you suffocate and die. On the other hand, an immutable room is something like a planet, which has an infinite number of pressure and gases. Essentially, planets are immutable rooms. Interesting fact, I did not know that. Now, the example he goes on to give about how he foresees rooms playing out in Star Citizen is pretty fascinating, and this leads to a lot of very interesting gameplay for engineers in the game, which I knew would have something to do, but this really goes into explaining what you as an engineer in the game will be doing, and it's pretty damn important. So grab a cold one. I'm going to read this to you. It's fascinating. But before I do, if you enjoy this content, guys, hit that subscribe button, your comments below, ring that bell to be notified, and YouTube loves it. When you leave me comments, I love reading them too. I appreciate that. Let me earn your sub. All right, ballistic rounds. Now, if you shot your ballistic round at a ship, it went through its shields. The shield will scrub off some of the kinetic energy, but not enough because the round still goes through and damages something. It damaged an internal component like a power relay node, and that node is now going to misfire. When that node misfires, it's going to start a fire. All right, now it gets interesting. The crew of the ship doesn't realize a fire's broken out in one of the corridors, as we are busy shooting other ships. You're in a turret, for example, you don't know what's happening, right? The fire starts to spread along flammable surfaces. We saw examples of this in the recent Inside Star Citizen about flames going through a corridor. It's exactly this. And as the fire starts to engulf other components, they also catch fire. The engineer on the bridge of the ship sees his console flash red, giving him the warning that several components have failed, and looking at his ship schematics, he sees the fire has broken out below decks. The engineer decides to seal the bulkhead doors on the corridor to contain the fire, but the doors have no power as the power node is out. You start seeing how one thing leads to another. It's a whole domino chain of things happening from one round making it through your shields. This is amazing emergent gameplay and pretty exciting stuff for an engineer. He calms one of his crewmates to leave his turret and grab an extinguisher and put out the blaze, which is slowly creeping towards the power plant room. Fire reaching the ship's power plant or its ammo stores are two surefire ways for your ship to go boom. With a physical damage system, ships will no longer just explode when their hit points hit zero. They'll explode because something inside them went critical and exploded due to damage or heat, which then damages everything else. Interesting. So you shooting a ship won't make it just blow up automatically. You got to hit certain components, or certain components got to be damaged enough to damage a ship internally. I love the gameplay. That sounds interesting. Outside of the damage that will affect the ability of the ship to function or its structural integrity, so it could become a lifeless hulk as much as they could go up in a flash of light. When the crew member gets the corridor where the fire is broken out or has already consumed a huge amount of oxygen in that room, the corridor has released noxious gases, so the crew member can't breathe and quickly retreats to put on a fire-resistant suit and helmet. At the moment, everyone's wearing helmets already, so maybe this will be a different part of the gameplay where maybe NPCs don't have helmets, or you have to tell them to put on helmets. As I see it right now, most people wear helmets anyway. But anyway, the idea is that you cannot walk around your ship without a helmet if there's a fire and smoke that will kill you. Makes perfect sense. The engineer, in desperation, manages to reroute power away from the destroyed node through a secondary node, restoring power to enough of the bulkhead doors to allow him to contain the fire. It sounds like engineers are going to have a lot to do in times of battle, rerouting power, telling people to go up fires, to close certain corridors, maybe closing a certain corridor with a fire in it and venting it to space, which sounds like it's completely possible with this room system. By this time, the crew member is suitably dressed and can extinguish the fire that made it past the bulkhead door before it can grow again. The engineer then reseals the airlocks and allows the life support system to replenish the air in the vented part of the ship. Once done, the engineer opens up the bulkhead door, allowing the crew member in with a replacement fuse for the power node, restoring the power to that section of the ship, then returns to his turret. It's all been a close call, but the ship is still alive and in the fight. That sounds so much, if you watch like Battlestar Galactica or maybe even Star Trek or definitely Star Wars, it's exactly like that. What he's envisioning is the battle, more than just shooting other ships, you have to take care of your own ship and repair broken systems before it leads to catastrophic failures. So all of this is in the works, and he goes on to say, what I described will be possible once we have finished and deployed the systems we're working on. I know it can be frustrating to wait for all of this functionality to be online, but I promise you everyone is working as hard and smartly as possible to get there. We are just going for a higher level of systemic gameplay versus scripted. This is very important, systemic gameplay versus scripted, and I think this is going to make a big difference in the longevity of the game, in that there is no scripted series of events that take place. When a component fails, you won't know exactly what's going to happen because damage can vary every single time you're in a battle. It's going to be a different kind of battle. You'll get shot in different places, and you'll never have the same scripted event twice. It's going to be systematic gameplay. Then most of it all games, and to the architect of all this, so it works in multiplayer. The scale is no small feat. Yeah, we understand it's going to be difficult to do. In closing, Chris Roberts says, I am very invested in making Star Citizen gameplay as systemic as possible. And I think this will open up many possibilities of emergent and immersive gameplay. I agree. The downside of this approach is it takes much longer to see results as opposed to scripting actions that you have to build in the fundamental systems first and have them interact with each other before the full extent of the gameplay becomes apparent. So, yeah, again, a reason why this takes so long to do is implementing what he's thinking here, the basics of it. And never mind the basics of it, but once it is actually in the game itself, how many bugs you're going to run into to make this work smoothly, it's going to be scary, but the payoff is obviously going to be very, very rewarding. He finishes off, by the long term and for people's ability to lose themselves in the universe Star Citizen for many years to come, it is the approach that will give us the best results. So again, why is Star Citizen taking so long? The room system is one of the things that's going to take a long time to implement and get working properly. But once it is done, you don't have to worry about scripted events, knowing that you're flying, you're going to a battle, you got shot inside everything, you know what's going to happen because it's scripted. No, you don't know what the outcome's going to be of being shot in a certain component because it's not scripted. So for the longevity of the game, this is definitely very good. But again, it's something being worked on. It's just going to take more time. That wraps it up, guys. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end. Like I said, I appreciate you subscribing and your comments below. Always appreciated. If you enjoy my content, stick around. I'll catch you in the next one.